Just a quick heads up before we start. On Sandwiched, we talk honestly about life, loss, and caregiving. That means conversations may touch on topics such as death and grief. We invite you to listen with care, and please do step away if you need to. Welcome back to Sandwiched, the podcast powered by Tumbleweed, where we explore the heart, humor, and humanity of caregiving. I'm your host, Paul Richardson, and today we're joined by Denise Brown. Denise Brown is the founder of caringourway.com, and she's a true pioneer in the caregiving movement. Since 1990, Denise has been the voice of family caregivers. She first launched caregiving.com, which was later acquired, and now continuing that mission through training, advocacy, and empowerment at Caring Our Way. Denise, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's awesome to be here with you, Paul. Thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So as we go ahead and get started today, obviously there's a lot of things we want to dive into, but do you want to just take a few moments and share a little about yourself and what excited you about potentially joining us on this podcast?
Yeah, I love the idea that we're sandwiched in a way that is not necessarily traditional when we think about sandwich during a caregiving experience. We had connected a couple weeks ago for something not related to the podcast, and you had said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, I wasn't sandwiched between caring for my parents and raising my kids." And you said, "Sandwiched between two different experiences is what we're talking about." I thought that was great because I was sandwiched between running my business and caring for my parents. And it was not a good place to be. It was hard. It was pressure. It was being smushed.
100%. And I love that you shared that with our listeners because that really is a personal mission. Like you, I've been a family caregiver and I've navigated the after loss experience with a few family members and even some friends. And you're right. A lot of the conversation around the sandwich generation is we're stuck between aging parents and children. And while that's true for a lot of folks, that's not everybody. And that doesn't make someone more or less sandwiched just because their dynamic looks a specific way. And so building a business, being an entrepreneur, just being an employee is a lot. And then layer in caregiving and also trying to live a life of our own. It's not easy. And so I'm so grateful that you said yes and that we get to dive into another unique story that we can share with our listeners. So thank you.
Yeah, and when I think about being sandwiched between those two experiences, I really feel like what got squeezed out was what can I do for myself? And even though I knew going into the experience that I wanted to have some kind of rituals around self-care, it really became a challenge. And I also think I didn't realize how stressful my caregiving experience was until it was over. My mom was the first to die. So she died in 2022. And 6 months after she died, my jeans were too big for me.
Wow.
And then, yes. And then 6 months later, my dad died. And after he died, I no longer craved this bucket of dark chocolate peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's, which if you had taken those away from me when I was caring for my parents, I would have had a temper tantrum, a meltdown, and felt like the world was ending. I couldn't live without that. And I kept thinking, gosh, the business is stressful. And you know what? It is hard to run a small business. It is really hard. And it was the stress of caregiving that really did a number on my body.
Yeah, so interesting. And I think, I am also a fan of the dark chocolate peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's as well. So I get where you're coming from.
Yes.
But it is interesting to your point. I think, like yourself, a lot of us don't realize how much of a toll caregiving is taking on our bodies, on our mental health. I think about it, and this is not as simple as this, but it really is. It's emotional, it's logistical. Often for many of us, it's financial, right? And so it's not just one or two things, it's a lot of things combined. While their passing and their caregiving, I'm sure, was a journey in itself, it also sounds like through that experience, you also kind of found what was healthier and what was better for you through that journey. So I'm excited to dive in more and hear a little bit more about that story.
One thing I'll mention too is I started counting how many systems we manage and advocate within and navigate after my mom died. I had had system navigation training in a program that I offer for those who want to coach family caregivers. And it really was just like five or six different systems. And I would ask during the training program participants, what systems would you add to this list of five or six? And one said, I would add nervous to this system, to the list of systems. And I was
Okay.
like my mind was
Yeah.
blown because it was such a great way of looking at the systems that I thought, I'm selling ourselves short on how many systems we manage. So after my mom died, I had a few more moments to myself. And so I started counting and I came up with 10. And then I was like, no, I think I missed some. And then it was 13. And then it was 15. And then it was 17. And now it's 19. And I'm going to stop at 19.
Wow.
And what's interesting, if we just look at, for instance, nervous system. So my stress is my nervous system, and it was activating my sweet tooth. And so that's why I craved those dark chocolate peanut butter cups. However, it wasn't just my nervous system I was managing. I was managing my dad's nervous system. I was managing my mom's nervous system. My younger sister really was activated by the stress of caregiving. So I was always trying to keep her calm so that she could stay present and involved and helping. So if you just think about those four people, that one person is trying to keep calm, no wonder we're feeling the toll. And that's just within a family system. Think about healthcare professionals. Like we're always trying to keep them calm too, right?
Yep.
Because we want them
Yep.
to keep showing up and keep helping us. In just that one system, we can see the entirety of the pressure. And then think about managing nervous systems during a hospitalization, during a discharge from the hospital, when home health shows up for the first time and it's new people who are coming into the house to help with really personal situations. Whoa. And we wonder, why am I so tired? Well, it's because because you are actively managing multiple systems for multiple people at the same time.
Wow, that's so well said, and it really made me reflect on a few of my own experiences, and it really was like you're right because it's not just that I'm managing my own kind of what I think about as emotional labor, right? That really is emotional labor of others, and it's a lot harder to help others manage this. And then when we think about, especially in some situations where maybe there's cognitive decline, or in my one of my situations, someone with mental illness, it becomes these layering effect, right? Which leads into being sandwiched by all of these components. So yeah, thanks for walking us through that.
One other thing, too, education is one of the systems. And it could be that you're caring for a child that needs special plans and special programs
Yeah.
within the educational system. But the other piece of it is we are also training people on how to manage our caree's nervous system.
Mm,
Right? So think about, for
yeah.
instance, a new professional who's interacting with our carry for the first time. We're guiding that professional to have a successful interaction by sharing what helps keep our carry calm, what helps keep our carry engaged in a conversation or being cooperative within a program. Imagine that. Like, that's a tall order. And yet we do it. We
Yeah.
do it every day. We do it without second thoughts. Like it becomes natural to us. And I think it becomes so natural that we do miss how much it just like weighs on us, like the toll, the lift we do. It's enormous.
It is. And Denise, maybe what we should do is let's take a little step back. Will you share more about Caring Our Way, your mission, and the purpose of that organization?
Yeah, it really is a community. It's a community for professionals who are going through my training programs, but it's also a community for anyone who has currently or previously cared for a family member. And the goal is to connect you with chats, events, workshops, and community. It's about knowing that there's a safe place to land during a time that is Challenging, overwhelming, stressful. We do a couple special events throughout the year. One is our Caregiving Listener Project that typically happens in October and in February. And it's an opportunity for you to tell a story about current caregiving. If you're in an after caregiving situation, a story about that, to someone who's been trained to be a volunteer listener. And we give you insights to share a 4-minute story with your volunteer listener in a private Zoom room. And then you engage in a conversation about that story with the volunteer listener for about 20 minutes. So, all told, you're together for about 25 minutes. And it's this idea that we keep things inside because we're not sure who to tell. We might have tried telling someone in our life, and then we realized that was too much for them, right? I mean, we're overwhelmed. And then when someone hears it, they
Yep.
think, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say to help her. So it's this idea that we can connect to really just say what we might keep inside too much so that we can release some stress. So we have events like that. It's really around connecting you to what can make a difference for you so you feel like, okay, that helped. I can make it till tomorrow.
Well, and as someone who has been a caregiver far longer than I realized, to your point, I did not realize it for about 3 decades, to be honest. And I'm excited to be joining this year's event on October 25th. So, for our listeners, we're going to align this episode, if all works out, to be that same week. So, please do take a listen. And in the show notes, we'll share a little bit more details about the event hosted by Caring Our Way. And it's a great organization to get connected with. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, and our beginning again retreat, which is October 25th, is really for those who are in an after caregiving experience. And it could be 2, 3, 4 years after caregiving has ended for you. It could be 1 week. We really talk about how do we adjust to this life after caregiving. And our presenters, like you, Paul, will share insights and comfort and information so that you can feel like I'm within a group of people who get it. One thing that happens is you figure out who gets it during caregiving, and then you kind of feel like, oh, they'll get what it's like for me after caregiving, and they still don't get it. So we want to create
Yeah.
opportunities for you to really connect with someone and a group of people who understand that after caregiving ends is also a unique situation that requires support for you.
Yeah, so true. And I appreciate kind of in what we just talked about, that shared experience is so key. Whether someone is becoming a caregiver, currently a caregiver, or is now on the other side of it, maybe that's temporary, but maybe that caregiving journey has ended for some period of time. I do find, and we talk to people all the time and customers and potential users for the Tumbleweed platform about, I feel so alone. I don't know where to go. Who else is in this journey? And so that's exactly to your point where you shared, sometimes we want to share our story with others and it can be very overwhelming for someone who's not been a caregiver. Doesn't mean they won't be in the future, but until you've been a caregiver, it's a little bit hard to understand how overwhelming, complex, and quite honestly, for a lot of us, exhausting it can feel.
Right, because oftentimes, if you haven't had that experience, when you hear what it's like for someone to go through it, you think, and you might say out loud, well, why don't you just get some help?
If
Like we
only
have,
it's that easy.
right, or like we hadn't thought of that. Like, oh, yeah,
Yep.
no, I'm refusing help left and right. I'm just not going to take it, no matter how great it is. I'm not going to. I mean, of course we thought about getting help. But that is a very sophisticated experience of finding help that helps during a caregiving experience. We also know that there's a huge shortage of direct care workers. So even if you felt like, yeah, I want help, and my caree is cooperating and says, get some help, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, let's say that is really what has happened. Everything has aligned. You might call your local home care agencies and they might say, well, we don't have anyone available right now because there's such a significant shortage. So the idea that you could just get help isn't,
Yeah.
is it realistic? Sometimes it's not affordable. Sometimes it actually
Yes.
isn't logistically possible. And it takes management to add in help. Like you have to manage this
Yep.
experience of adding in help. And that's hard.
Absolutely. It really is like to some extent managing employees, right? Because how are they with your caree? Are they showing up on time? How are the handoffs going? What's the experience like? Are they the right kind of connection for your caree, right? Some carees want a talker, others want someone who are just kind of quiet and fade into the background, right? There's so many layers to choosing the right person. And to your point, even if everything aligns, so many things can go wrong.
Yes, absolutely. It's very complicated. I train on this concept in our programs that's called the Family Caregivers House of Cards, because there's this myth, I'm going to say myth, that family caregivers won't receive or accept help. And it's not that, it's that we're processing how to add help in so we keep our fragile house of cards
Yeah.
standing. If you add in the wrong help, it could really just throw your house of cards into just shambles. And you don't want that to happen. You already spent a lot of time trying to figure this out so that
Yeah.
everybody's okay, right? You've got a standing house of cards, and then you think, what would help look like? Well, that's complicated because you have to communicate with your caree. You have to get an okay from your caree. You might have other family members that are saying, I don't know if we should spend this because they're thinking, why are you spending my inheritance, right? So there's like
Yep.
so
Yep.
many complicated aspects of this that it is processing how to add in help. And the other piece of it is it's it's really difficult to think about trusting someone who's a stranger to come into the home, for instance, if you're thinking about bringing home help in. And if you are in a shared household, you're also thinking about how do I bring someone in and align it with the schedules of the family system? And then how do I ensure other family members still have privacy, still have space, and the person who's coming in has access to supplies and equipment or whatever it is that they might need? It's complicated. It's very complicated. It's a process to think about how help fits into our house of cards.
Yeah, truly. And one card being shifted can the whole house comes down, right?
Right. And then you think, what have I done?
Yes, yes. And then it becomes worse. Well,
Yes, you have to start
I'm so
over.
glad you laid that out for folks who have not experienced this yet, because I think the simple answer is often we'll just get some help, right? And I think you really exemplify there's so many nuances and little connection points and considerations when we're putting all of these pieces together. Um, Super insightful. So, Denise, you've been in this space now for about 30 years. I was so grateful that we got connected. Tell me about launching caregiving.com in the 90s. And when I think about the 90s, I think about AOL.com and chat rooms, but I feel like you were really ahead of the time when you launched caregiving.com. Can you share more about that experience?
I had already launched a print newsletter called Caregiving, and I launched
Mhm.
that in 1995. And then I was with some friends out for pizza, and one of my friends said, "You know what? I'm selling some, like it was car parts on this thing called the
Okay.
internet, and I'm making money." I was like, well, I want to be there. I'm not going to sell car parts, but you know what?
Yeah.
I want to be there. And everybody thought I was nuts. Family caregivers aren't on the internet, blah, 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 blah. So I actually took an online course through Prodigy, which was bundled in my computer software. So Prodigy was one of the very first ways to connect. It was a competitor to AOL, and I just happened to have
Ah,
Prodigy on my computer. So
okay.
I took a course that was on a bulletin board. So bulletin boards were very, very popular early in the internet on how to create your own website. So I learned how to basically write HTML. And then I
Amazing.
thought, okay, I'll just launch and see what happens. And so I put up a Prodigy page. So very simple page, like a landing page. And then I built out that, and I didn't have a domain name, but I just thought, well, let's just try this. So I tried it in March of 96, and people were coming to this page and asking for more. And I was like, huh. So then I thought, well, maybe I should get a domain name. So I got the domain name. And then I actually did hire developers to actually create the website. And then people started coming. And once I started getting visitors who were family caregivers, I started adding in what they asked me to add in. So, for instance, one early visitor was a woman named Jenny who was caring for her grandmother. And she said, I'd love to connect to others. Can you figure this out? And I was like, can I figure this out? Now, I should also mention that I'm a writer. I did not have any experience in technology, any of this. So I was just kind of figuring it out by the seat of my pants. And I thought, well, can't we just email each other? So we started just doing reply all to an
Yep,
email.
yep.
And then I thought, well, there's got to be an easier way. So then I learned about listservs, which is a piece of software that actually distributes emails to a group. And then Yahoo Groups was big. So I used Yahoo Groups for online groups and then just kept building out different pieces of technology. The challenge was because I was not a technologist, I ended up with probably like 70 different pieces of software that I used to
Ugh,
keep the website going. And whenever there was an update for one piece of software, it typically would cause a conflict with other pieces of software. And then the website would go down, and then I'd be up all night. And it really started to get to be too much. And at the time, I had training programs that I had launched in 2016. So I thought, you know what? I think I really need to focus on training. So I sold the website to Ohio's Hospice and then really focused on training programs. And then I figured out I don't have to do all the technology. There's other companies that will do this now. So I was able
yes.
to launch the online community Caring Our Way, and I don't have to worry about the technology at all. And it's like fabulous. It's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah, thank you. Well, and as an entrepreneur myself, and also a non-technical founder, although I'm getting more technical as the further in I go, I think that's as you experienced, the more you kind of become more technical over time out of necessity, but also a bit out of interest. But I must say, really, I'm so glad that you believed that if you build it, they will come. Right? I'm based in Iowa, and so obviously that kind of sentiment is a big Iowa theme, but you knew the family caregivers needed it, and they found their way to you. So I really commend you on believing in it and then making it happen. So that's fantastic.
And one thing I knew is family caregivers wanted to read and connect with other family caregivers. And at the time, there were a few other organizations that created content for family caregivers, but they really looked to physicians and
Yeah,
attorneys and
yeah,
financial planners. And I thought, that's all and well and good, but we want to hear from each other. So I had contributors to my print publication who were family caregivers who would write columns. And then when I went online, I just continued to add family caregivers as really the content creators. And then they became bloggers when blogging became available. And then they became guests on my podcasts when I could
yeah,
really invite them to be part of a podcast, a radio show, because not only do we want to connect to someone who speaks our language, but when we're going through a difficult time, we want to see that there's an opportunity for us. And it became really energizing when there was an opportunity to blog on a major website, when there was an opportunity to be a podcast guest
yeah,
on my podcast. And I really connected to this idea that opportunities can be healing. And that really helped me understand what are the training programs I want to launch for
yeah,
family caregivers and former family caregivers so that they connect to the opportunity that's right for them, whether it be leading a support group, whether it be starting a small business to coach and consult with family caregivers, whether it be to really lead workshops within their community to educate family caregivers. Opportunities really can be healing.
I can't agree more. That's what honestly got me set on the path to becoming an entrepreneur and leaning in 100% was reflecting on my journey navigating loss and preparing for end of life, and then also my caregiver experience. And so you're right. So much can come out of it on the other side. I share with people when they ask, it's been some of the hardest things that I've ever done. And I'm not saying that I would have liked to have experienced everything that I have. And I've used those experiences to find advocacy and connection and purpose, and really kind of leaning those things into, and to your point, creating opportunity. That's why Sandwiched exists. It really is, whether someone is in the journey right now or has been on the journey, the more we talk about it and the more resources we can bring to folks, I think the better we can impact the community as a whole.
I remember watching a webinar. What year are we in now? 2025. So this probably was 13 years ago. And they had a former family caregiver as a panel guest. And he said, I have amassed this incredible knowledge base. I have all these resources. Now that caregiving has ended, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And I thought, there's got to be a way you can use that and not just lose it. And the other piece of it is what you figured out helps someone else figure it out
Yes.
with them, right? It's
Yes.
useful for someone else. It was useful for you, but its use doesn't stop with you. It actually can help someone else. That was, I mean, it was 13 years ago, and I remember it like
Yeah.
it was yesterday because I thought that was so interesting to think about. What do I do with this? And it's about giving it. It's not just saying,
Yes.
I'm going to keep it and let it go. I'm going to give it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna share it. Yes. We talked a little bit earlier, and let's dive in a little bit deeper. You were building and growing your business, and you were caring for both of your parents. How did you, I won't say balance it because I don't think that balance always happens. How did you manage it all?
One thing that I figured out was I needed to be clear about my priorities, and I needed to clearly communicate my priorities with my parents. If there was a gig, for instance, a speaking engagement, and I was getting paid for it, that was a priority. And my parents knew that. And they always encouraged me, please don't cancel, go. So I was doing workshops, for instance, at a time when both my parents were critically ill. I was traveling to do workshops for a speakers bureau that I was part of that delivered workshops on behalf of work-life balance companies and employee
Mhm.
assistance programs. So while I was presenting to employees, I was thinking about my parents, especially my mom, who was critically in
Yeah.
the hospital. And I was like, I got to do it. I just have to do it. And if I hadn't, I think my mom would have been really mad at me. So it helped that I knew what my priorities were. And the priority was bringing money in. Revenue was always a priority. And then being clear on that with actually my parents and my siblings, they knew that as well. That helped then. So I think about it as not always having to make a decision. If I knew what my priorities were, I didn't have to make a decision. I just stuck with that priority. That helped because making decisions is exhausting. And if you feel like,
Yeah.
if you think about all the small decisions you make, and then you have a big decision, oh my gosh, you're like, I don't know what to do. Or reverse it, like you've had all these big decisions and then you have to make little decisions. Ugh, it's too much. And I also had a priority around what helped me cope, and that was swimming. I could swim, but not well. So when I started swimming, it was because I wanted to be able to go outside when I was spending so much time inside in hospitals and reconnect to a different energy. So I would go to our outdoor pool in the summer. I'm in Chicago, so that was the only time we could swim outside. And I didn't worry about swimming laps. I just floated. And our pool has a system where 10 minutes before the hour is adult swim only. The kids have to get out of the pool and adults are in the pool. So during that 10 minutes, I would just float back and forth, and I would float on my back and look to the sky. And it was so relaxing and such a nice break. I was out in sunshine, I was around different energy, and it was relaxing for me. And I happened to see some people swimming laps, and I thought, next summer, I want to swim laps. So that's what I committed to doing. We are lucky in our suburb. We have an indoor pool, so I can swim laps during the winter months and the cooler months. And that was something that was also a priority that my parents knew about. And they would say, "Did you get to the pool today? What was going on at the pool? What was happening at the pool?" And because that was a priority for me and they could see the difference it made for them, they were able to really get in and support me on it, which was awesome. And I think it's this idea of creating our priorities, but not keeping it to ourselves. We have to tell people what
Yes,
our priorities
yes,
are because they
yeah,
cannot read our mind.
yes,
Just as an aside, I think one of the skills that we have as family caregivers is we actually can read a need. We get so used to reading our caree's need without our
yes,
caree saying, "Oh, I need this." We just know how to read the need that we think others can read our need. And that's a very unique talent that others don't have. So we have to say our need out loud, which is our priority. Very important to remember that.
Yes, and I really appreciated the framing around priorities. You're right. Decision making, whether it's big, small, or medium, it can be exhausting, and as employees, business owners, family caregivers, we're constantly making decisions. But I do think, to your point, if it's a priority, it's a priority. That's a non-starter. And it is like, okay, that's part of the priority list. And I think I just wanted to double click on, yes, sharing it with others. And at least at this point, from our conversations, a lot of the family caregivers often come from a more empathic kind of trait perspective. And whether that's, innate, whether that's learned, I'm sure it's some balance of both. A strength of ours is really in able to identify the need of a caree or others. And I think sometimes, to your point, we do sometimes assume people have that same lens or that same experience. And then it's like, well, why don't they see me or my needs or my wants, desires? But you're right. That's not everyone's lived experience. We must share it out.
One other decision I made is because you could imagine in my family, I was the default primary family caregiver. I had older siblings. I was the fourth of five, but I was the primary. And I thought, I'm not going through this by myself. So if I had a bad day or things were tough, I was always first, I would call my brother and then I would conference in my sister and I would say, "You will not believe what happened." I should mention that I have an oldest sister, but she removed herself from the family and she's estranged. We've done our best to
okay,
bring her back in, and she has always said no. And that was heartbreaking for my mom, especially heartbreaking. A year before my mom died, my brother died. And that was awful too. And I am so glad that I actually was upfront about my stress during caregiving because my brother who died was always the one who would lift me up. He was the
mm,
one who was sending me messages of support. If I had had a bad day with my dad, who was my uncooperative carrie, there would be a gift basket outside my apartment door the next day that my brother would send me. And I always think about, I'm so glad I was honest with him so that he could support me because those are the memories that I have of him now that he's gone
yeah,
that are so comforting. And I think it's important for us to be honest about what's stressing us out. Not everybody is going to be able to show up and help, but let's give everyone a chance so we can see who can show up and help because that's such a nice memory. And I also want to mention something else. So I often think about this, that we don't want to burden someone else because we understand the burden of caregiving. And burden is such a funny word to use. I'm not sure what other word to use, so I'm just going to use it
yep,
just to give you an idea of what I'm thinking of. So we think, "Oh, I'm so burdened by this. I can't ask someone else to help in the family because I don't want to burden them." The truth is, sometimes it's an opportunity. So with my brother, I did not worry about burdening him with how stressed and upset I would get with our dad because it became an opportunity for him to step in and help and support me. And again, not everybody can do that, but when we see who can, oh, it's a gift. It's a gift for them to give us to receive.
And I think really what I heard, Denise, was we've got to start talking more to not only our carees, but also others that are within either our family unit or that are in the support network, right? Because maybe you're an only child, or maybe you don't have people who live nearby, and start talking to them, leaning on others in your circle. But I did not do a good job of this earlier in my life, caring for my mom with mental illness, but I'm doing a better job now with my siblings about, hey, we're all going to have ups and downs, so maybe we can navigate through who can kind of take the lead in different stages, or also what are the things that are less overwhelming or stressful or emotionally draining, because it looks different for each of us. And maybe we kind of take the primary lead in something that's about helping pay bills if needed, or coordinating doctor's appointments, or right, whatever the aspects are. And I do think that, talking to others, asking for help, and sharing is so important.
Absolutely. And I really was clear about who could do what. So, for instance, my brother, who is the surviving brother, is a CPA. So, if it
Yeah.
involved money, he was my go-to. So, for instance, I was just about to lead a training program. My dad called me. This was after my mom died, and he was calling me in the middle of the day, so I knew something was wrong. And he was calling because he had checked his bank account and money was gone. Someone had gotten a hold of a check. They wrote themselves a check for $5,000. And so my dad, who was 93 at the time, was very much about money. And so he had
Yep.
access to all his bank accounts on his computer. Because I was just about to go into a training program, I thought, I'm not going to manage this. I'm going to comfort my dad, tell him thank you for calling me, and say, you know who could really help you with this? It's Keith. And so I called
Yeah.
Keith.
Yeah.
And you know what? He became the go-to. He helped with this. And interestingly enough, they did catch who was doing this, writing these checks. They caught the person. The person was convicted after my dad died. But because my brother was helping, he was able to help the police department
Oh, good.
fix this. I know. So it's a good story.
It is a good story. Not sadly, not many of that positive in an ending.
Right, exactly. And you know what? The bank was great with my dad. They actually stopped payment, they reversed, so he didn't lose any money. So it was great. It's just a reminder to be hyper
Yes.
vigilant about finances. With my younger sister, who had a difficult time with her nervous system around all this, I knew she was the social break for my parents and then for me. And I
Mm.
realized this when my mom was hospitalized in 2015. She was critically ill. So when I went to the hospital, I was working, running up and down the hallway, getting to grand rounds. I was there early, asking for updates, blah, 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 blah. And when my sister would come, she would just sit and talk with my mom. And I would be like, what are you doing? Like, there's work to be done. And then my mom said to me, like the next day, it's so nice when you come because you do the work. And it's nice when
Mm.
Julie comes because it's nice to sit and gab and socialize. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am missing out on an opportunity to take a break. And I
Yeah.
am totally minimizing the true value she's giving to my mom, which is my mom did not think about anything other than my sister giving an update about the grandkids and what they were doing. So it was a break for my mom of thinking about, oh, I'm in the hospital. I'm like, oh. And after that, when my sister would come to the hospital and my mom was sleeping, I would say, let's go take a walk and sit outside and get something from the cafeteria. And then I had a break. So that was what I thought about going forward. Julie was my break. She was a break for my parents and she was a break for me. So even though it didn't look like she was doing the heavy work of caregiving, she was doing something really helpful and impactful. And that was helping all of us just reconnect to life.
This episode of Sandwiched is brought to you by Tumbleweed. Tumbleweed is a purpose-driven platform helping families navigate aging, caregiving, and legacy planning with ease and compassion. Right now, the first 100 listeners to sign up will receive a free Tumbleweed membership for 1 full year. That's a value of over $100. But once those 100 spots are gone, they're gone. So don't delay. Go to tumbleweedplan.com. That's tumbleweed plan, PLAN.com. Click Get Started, fill in your account details, and enter the promo code SANDWICHED, SANDWICHED. Thanks for listening. Now back to today's episode. I actually, as you were sharing that story, it made me think about, so on my mom's side, I have two younger sisters and they've engaged at different points. And it actually reminded me that I want to send just a little message of thank you because my schedule over the last few months has been very heavy. And so I've asked one of my sisters to step up more a little bit in some of the caregiving duties. And so it's like, just a simple little reminder can really go a long way. And it reminded me of you shared the story with your brother who had passed away, and some of your fondest memories were when you were in the hardest moments of caregiving, he would send you an affirmation, a message, or even a little gift basket just to say, hey, I'm thinking about you and thank you for what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. We can share thanks and appreciation for those who show up to help us. And I think what's interesting is this shared experience becomes this really interesting bond. So I am much more connected to my brother than I ever would have been had we not had this caregiving experience. And my relationship with him after our parents have died, there is a commitment for me with him. He's not someone who's going to reach out and call me. I don't care. So I call him every couple weeks. We're Cub fans. He's a big Cub fan. So right now we're in playoff season, just about to get eliminated by the Brewers. So I will call and say,
Uh-oh.
what do you, I know, that's okay. What do you think about this game? Are we going to be able to pull it out? It's fun. It's fun. And it just feels like there's a deeper connection with him because we
Yes.
were so deeply connected through caregiving.
I've heard in different situations that caregiving is often the job description we didn't ask for. And I've also heard that caregiving, and I do feel this way myself most of the time, it's also one of the best gifts I've been given. And I think that it's interesting how I can hold space for the difficulty, but also the beauty. And it was interesting hearing how through the journey it allowed you and your siblings to connect in different ways. And also to recognize at the end of the day, we also are who we are, and how do we appreciate each person's perspective and uniqueness. Your brother was more go with the flow. So he could give the space to you when things were maybe exhausting, and it didn't bother him. You weren't too much. He just, "Oh, no problem. What do you need, Denise?" And listened and made you feel, heard and valued. And the same thing for him. He's not someone who's going to reach out. So you do that to keep that connection going. So many nuggets of insight in there.
And you would think my younger sister would be the one who I could, and it was too much for her. It was just too much for her. So I knew it was going to be too much for her. So in many ways, I would first call my brother, blah, 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 have my blow up, and then I'd be like, let's have Julie join this conference call.
Yep.
And then she could hear it when I was calmer. And what's interesting is I'm not sure if my brother was like, "Oh, this doesn't bother me." He never he never said, "Please don't call me." He never said, "Oh, I have to go." He never not answered the phone. I should probably ask him how he felt about all these phone calls from me,
Yeah.
but it's
Right.
okay. It's okay.
We'll see. I think that's the great thing about, family and friends and relationships is that sometimes we have a question we want to ask for days, sometimes years. There are questions that I want to ask certain people in my life that I'm like, time's not right, and maybe when the moment opens the door, it'll be hey, bro, what did you think in those moments? What was going through your head? And maybe not, right? It's really just it's more of I'm curious.
And you know what's interesting? At the time, he was in a job he hated.
Oh,
So I knew if I called him and said, Dad's in the hospital, he fell again. My dad would fall and he'd have these terrible wounds, just like skin
yeah.
tears, like, oh.
Yeah.
So they always were bandaging him up and then he'd go home. But there were times where I'd be in the emergency room with my dad and be like, well, I've got a meeting that I have to go to. So I would just call my brother and say, can you tag team? Can you come so I can go? And he'd always be like, yeah, because he always wanted to leave work. So
So, as you shared earlier, Denise, you don't have children yourself. Although sometimes I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I feel like I have children when I'm in a caregiver role, but that's my own experience. I won't put that on you. But I'm curious, not having children and being a caregiver, do you think that you were well prepared as you stepped into the caregiving role? Do you think that having been a parent could have prepared you in a different way? I get this question a lot, and so that's really where it's coming from.
so interesting. I never thought about parenting preparing me for caregiving, but you have to remember too that I'd already been supporting family caregivers for, let's see, so my dad was diagnosed with bladder cancer in 2004. So I'd already had 14 years of really deep
Okay.
diving into the family caregiving
Yeah.
experience. So I knew what it could be like. I want to say that you're never fully prepared for what it's like because there's always things that happen that you think, oh my gosh, really? Every situation is so unique. However, I understood parts of the experience. I understood that it was going to be emotional. I understood that
Yeah.
it's tough to be in the healthcare system. So I'm not sure. I was very involved in helping my siblings raise their children. Now I do think of it in this with this perspective. I think parenting teaches you how to love, and I think caregiving teaches you how to live. Because in a
Mm,
caregiving experience, many times you
yeah.
feel like you're just battling death and that you're seeing the end. And you understand time is limited, which really prompts you to think, well, what am I going to do with my time? How am I going to not waste time? Because you can see how easy it is to waste time
Mhm.
and then not get it back. So you want to be so much more intentional about your time and how you use it and who you spend it with.
Yes, Denise, I want to lean into what you just said because I think that's one of the most beautiful statements that I've heard. Will you say that one more time?
Parenting teaches you how to love, caregiving teaches you how to live.
I mean, mind blown, seriously. Because it really is. I am not a parent, but like you, I've been very involved with my nieces and nephews. I'm a dog dad, so I'll call that some form of parenting. But I will say that some of my own personal experiences, but also being very involved in some friends and family with navigating aging and their death, I feel like I live a richer, fuller, more meaningful life because I really do understand I could be gone tomorrow. I could have a diagnosis. I could have an accident. And it doesn't mean that I don't fear death, but it allows me to lean in more fully. And I do believe I get to live a richer life because I have an awareness of we are mortal beings. It will come at some point, and I do my best to enjoy each day and each experience, each conversation. Gosh, that's I sincerely, beautifully said.
I also get questions about being alone. My dad really worried about me being alone. We do something on Caring Our Way every Christmas. We have a 36-hour Christmas chat where we open up a chat room at noon, Christmas Eve through
Mhm.
midnight, Christmas Day. So you can drop in and say, oh my gosh, these people, my family are driving me nuts, or whatever it is. You just drop in, you receive our support, and it's just a nice way to feel like I have somewhere to land during this difficult holiday. And there was one year where one of the community members was struggling with being single. And she said to me, don't you ever get lonely? And I thought, you know what? I have so many ideas that my ideas keep me good company. I am constantly thinking about what I could do next, which is also a curse. I want to let you know that it is hard to always be constantly thinking, but I really feel like my ideas keep me good company because there's always
Yes.
something else I could be doing. And I also think about what I have, let's see, this is going to sound like a strange way to position it, but what I've given birth to, and I've given birth to books, training programs, a community. a previous community. So I feel like I have done things that I've nurtured, like I have taken care of them. I've made sure that they are relevant and helpful and supportive. So I think about a different way of mothering by
Yeah.
what do you really create that you give that can help another?
Yeah, and it's also too, I think parenting is also legacy. And a lot of what you're doing is legacy. You're building your legacy and it will continue to live on. You're right, it is different, but it also similar in some ways. And as someone who always sees the opportunity and the need and there's so many things we can do here. It is a blessing and a curse because it's as a founder, we have to stay focused on what we can do right now, what's in the roadmap, where are we headed, and maybe there's these 12 other things we can bring in at some point, but we can't do it all today. So I'm constantly reflecting in the mirror about that experience. So
We're doing a program for a large pharmaceutical company starting in 2026. We're creating their workshop series for their employee resource group for their family caregivers who are in the workplace. And I've brought in one of our certified caregiving consultants, someone who's graduated from my training program, because I want her to be a part of this. So this is
Yeah.
something she takes on. Yeah, succession planning starts, which
Yes.
is, oh, because I was like, this is awesome. And will I be doing this in 2 years? Probably not. It's an amazing, amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love working with this team at this company. They are fabulous. And I want to make sure it continues. And for it
Yep.
to continue, I have to train someone to take it over. So, oh,
Yep.
Lauren,
Oh, good.
it's our
Yes.
colleague in
Lauren Yankoff,
yes, Lauren is going to start taking
Amazing.
over this program. So she is working with me to build,
Fantastic.
yeah, to build out what does this curriculum look like? What does our resource directory look like? And then it becomes something that we can duplicate for other organizations. And Lauren is the perfect person to
Yes.
spearhead this.
and what a perfect total coincidental segue. Lauren is a guest of ours coming in November. So fantastic. So listeners, wow, unplanned but super aligned. So Lauren's going to be one of our guests coming. And yes, definitely, Lauren, thank you for connecting me to Denise. It really, one of the things that I have found is early stage, it was hard to find connections, but once you find it, we we offer solutions and resources and connections, and I think that's the beauty of the space that we're in kind of being family caregivers, also working in supporting family caregivers. So yes, that's wonderful. And I think succession planning and legacy, and also too, you're opening up the door to the next generation, which is perfect because one of my final questions is, what are your hopes and wishes for the next generation of family caregivers?
I would love for family caregivers wherever they live to feel like their neighborhood also offers solutions and support. That you don't feel like you have to waste time to find it because it literally is something that you feel like, well, I walk out my door and I have access to support and services that help me. Now, that's a big dream. I also think that we are positioned to make it happen because we have to make it happen because of the
Yes.
demands. So I started taking my mom to her church guild when I cared for her. So I would provide transportation and I would stay for the meetings. And her church guild is a group of women who are now in their late 80s and 90s. And then got recruited to join the guild. And then I got recruited to be a co-chair because the
Hmm.
women are in their 80s and 90s. What is interesting to me is the kind of support that they provide for each other. So, for instance, when my mom was dying, she and my dad lived in an apartment
Hmm.
and a guild member lived down the hallway, Yolanda. And
Oh,
every
okay.
morning when my mom was dying, Yolanda would slip a little card under the
Oh,
door. So at 8 o'clock, I knew there'd be a card from Yolanda. It always makes me want to cry because it was always like, we love
yeah.
you, oh. So then I would go and read the card to my mom. Yolanda slipped another card. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it says. Oh my gosh, it was just beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the kind of support, right? Could you imagine? If
Yeah.
you're in the house caring for someone who is dying And there are neighbors who slip notes under the door for you. Like, how
Yes.
beautiful is that? But we don't have any mechanism to do that. The other thing I think about with this guild is we have one member whose husband is starting to have cognitive impairment. So he has joined a couple of our meetings recently. So it's all women plus him. And I think, how fabulous is that? He actually came to one of our meetings that his wife couldn't attend. She had something else, but she knew he was in good hands because he was with us. It's
Yeah.
things that are so simple that we could start doing that we think are too complicated to do that can make a difference. Like, how can we integrate our caree into social situations that are easy for individuals to manage? So he joined us for lunch and he was with us for a couple hours and he did great. And it was fun to have him. I think we make things too complicated sometimes, and I think we have to really think about what's the easy solution here. And the easy solution is integrating our carees into life, our siblings' life. So it's not a either or, and it's not about, oh my gosh, how do I do this? It's I do this because it's possible. I can bring this situation with me. My neighborhood has services and support available to me.
I love that. And, there were a couple of things that I really wanted to, pause on. Loneliness is such a challenge for our aging population. And I think that, to your point, integrating them into our community, maintaining connection to the community is so key, and feeling like that they belong. I think that as simple as whether someone is close to the end or even just aging, a tiny little note on their door can completely change their connection to society. And also, to your point, it was very meaningful for you as the caree as well. I had a conversation with a gentleman last week at a conference, and he was sharing how he noticed his neighbor just slowly starting to slow down over the course of a couple of years and struggling with bringing in her trash cans to the side of her house. And so what he did was he started to bring them up for her just gently. Didn't ask, just started doing it. And after, I think he said, about a month of doing it, the lady came to his door and was knocking. Is like, "Are you the person who keeps moving my garage?" Like trash cans, like a little bit came on a little aggressively. And then when he said yes, she just went up and gave him a big hug and said, "You have no idea how much that's been helpful to me." And he's like, "I knew I was being helpful." He's like, "But I didn't know the meaning." I really just, it does not have to be difficult. It does not have to be huge. And little things sometimes are the most impactful and meaningful experiences for all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just have to observe, be aware, read the need.
Read the need. So many amazing things I took away from this conversation, Denise. But before we do wrap up, at least for this time, would love to have you on again in the future. Any parting words of wisdom, message that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I would say, actually, I'll just leave with notes of appreciation. Thank you for all you do. We know how hard it is. We know that you get up every day and you might think, how can I? But we believe you can. We believe in you and we thank you for your good work in the world. It makes a huge difference.
It does. And just to echo Denise's sentiment, thank you. We see you. And remember, we are better together. Denise, it's been a pleasure, and I so appreciate your time and your experiences sharing with me and our guests today.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of Sandwiched, powered by Tumbleweed. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Friday. Sandwiched is a Second Act Studio production with support from Tumbleweed. We couldn't do this without the support of our production team, Maddie Willis, Brennan Plank, and our interns, Eileen O'Doherty and Anthony Cano. Thanks for listening, and remember, you are not alone. Have a great one.